Remember when many were worried that Gilas Pilipinas might be too young and out of shape? Well, all those worries immediately went away in just a span of 20 minutes. The national squad went on an early surge against Thailand last Friday and never looked back to notch win number 1 in the second window of the 2021 FIBA Asia Cup Qualifiers. The youthful, exciting crew displayed unforgiving defense, unselfish play, and unrelenting energy. It looked like the guys had been playing together for years now. But then again, the mission in the Bahrain bubble is to get 2 wins and remain unbeaten in Group A. So there's no room for overcomplacency despite the easy first victory. After all, Thailand has the tools to pull off an upset and exact revenge. Pero syempre, hindi naman basta-basta lang papayag ang Gilas Pilipinas. That's the headline on tonight's Sports Page.
The hottest headlines.
The integral issue.
Who will join the pantheon of the great?
What's the outlook of the future of sports?
The game changers.
The history maker.
The stories that make sports eternally compelling.
Open the Sports Page.
Welcome to another edition of your Sports Page. We are in FIBA season and the frenzy, the passion of the nation is back and people are asking questions, having opinions about their national team. They won in their first game and we are going to discuss the opportunities for the team going into their second game, which you will see very, very shortly on the same day you are watching this. We have Dr. J. Andy Howe with us to break down the game, and also we have Coach Yang Giao, the former Gilas Pilipinas coach who did the game as analyst first time around. We have Gabe Norwood, who has been a many-time member of the Gilas team. We have Enzo Flo, the FIBA reporter analyst, and he has so many insights and information about the circle, the sphere of the FIBA Asia world. I'd like to start with Coach Yang. His impressions about this young team that won against Thailand just a few days ago.
Well, I only have good words for the team. I feel that they started out really well. Of course, the first quarter, you felt kind of nervous. I'm sure they were also feeling nervous. Thailand stuck with us for the whole of the first quarter. But you can see from the way they move, from the way they executed offensively and defensively, that the Gilas team was just waiting for that moment when they can put together a streak or a run, and they did that towards the second half of the second quarter, and from then on we did not look back. So that's a good sign. Also, a good sign is they have chemistry. No, these teams. These guys are coming from different collegiate teams. Half of them played for Coach Tab Baldwin already for Ateneo. And I think there's 4 players from the UP squad. So these are rivals in the UAAP, but you blend them together and they're playing well. So to me, that's a good sign.
Exactly. 18.5 fast break points against only 6 by Thailand. Points in the paint, 46 against 24.7. Dr. J, your question first, please.
Well, Gabe, you've been in this kind of situation for many times. I think this will be one of the few times that you're not a member of the Gilas national team. How do you feel about our youngsters? The future, is it right? Are they going to be ripe for 2023?
Like Coach Yang said, just for this game in particular and the program as a whole, very excited in terms of the guard play, the bigs, some of the guys who aren't even present with the team right now with, Kai and AJ Adu and Carl Tamayo, some of those names. But overall, I think it's a great situation, given that we're hosting in 2023, learn how to win together, lose, whatever the situation, as long as they're building as a team and building that chemistry, as Coach Yang just mentioned. I think that's essential moving towards the next World Cup in 2023.
Of course, when we play in the Asia Cup or whatever, that's stronger competition. Would you as a coach suggest, even though right now we're a very young team, I think the average of that team would be about 24, 25 years old, no?
Yes.
So would you suggest diluting them with some professional players that are still relatively young so that the experience, it's different when you're playing a team that doesn't really have some good big men. We're going to play teams that are going to have good big men as well as a complete lineup wherein you have shooters, you got good point guards. So what would your suggestion be on that matter?
As good as these young guys are, and we know what their potentials are, we've seen them against Thailand. But you cannot really judge them just playing one game. I think when you see them play Japan, when you see them play Korea or play the Middle East teams, that's really, I think, the time when we can say this team is going to be ready. Also, the best way for them to learn is for them to be able to play with the veterans and to play against the veterans. And then you combine them playing tough games against the international teams, as I said, like Japan and Korea, Lebanon, and probably Iran. The upside is just going to be greater for them.
And so let me get to you. We have played Thailand, and most of the time we've beaten Thailand and most of our opponents in the Southeast Asian region. Has basketball not really improved in the region, or are we just so dominant? Because if you look at all the SEA games, look at all those SIABA games, we've always won this tournament. Is the game not improving in the region?
I think it's totally the opposite direction, Sir Sev. I think the game all across Southeast Asia is improving big time, especially with so many leagues sprouting left and right. Thailand has their own pro league. In the game against Thailand, Coach Sheng actually mentioned it really, really well and explicitly how Thailand seems to be a little bit better now compared to before. Coach Sheng mentioned when he was doing the game that one main guy was actually absent here. That's Tyler Lamb, of course, their naturalized player who's actually part Thai, part American. And there are about a handful of other top-level Thailand pro players who, for one reason or another, weren't able to join this Thailand team as well. But having said that, we have a very good team.
Let's go to Gabe. Gabe, a lot of people on Twitter, interesting. It's just the fans talking. They wanted to see more of Kobe Paras dunking the ball. You can dunk, I know, Gabe, and you were talking about that. There's pictures behind you about you dunking, and you can still do it. Trust me. What is that part of the system? I think Kobe Paras is. People want him to keep on dunking in that open game, but you have to play according to system. Isn't that right?
Oh, for sure. I think Kobe's athleticism and what he's able to do above the rim has been well documented. It's well known, and as a fan of the game, that's what you want to see. Naturally, I think those expectations and those wants are warranted. But at the same time, I think Kobe did a good job even before the tournament started. I saw a comment that he made in terms of how he wants to approach the game and what he wants to bring. I think showing his maturity as a player, what he wants to really be as a player for the team, for the country. And I think he's just going out there trying to do that. Naturally, his energy is something that's been a positive for him all the time. It's just being able to kind of channel it in a positive direction for the team. And I think he did that yesterday, still being aggressive. He had his highlight dunk early in the game and then kind of settled down from there in terms of his role and trying to get things done.
Okay. I'm going to call him Kobe Bryant very soon if I do one of those games. And the mistake I expect to happen. Dr. J, your turn.
Enzo, do you have any news about what's going to happen with Korea not participating and then also Indonesia? Well, that Indonesia thing has been moved to another date in February, no? So are we going to have a victory over Korea by default, or are we going to have to play that again and consider that as a no game at the moment, no?
Well, FIBA will come out with an official resolution on that. And I'm sure a lot of people are waiting for that, not just from our country, Dr. J, but they're going to come out with a resolution on that, hopefully by next week. But if I'm basing it on precedent from the first window where other countries were not able to play certain games, I think basically all the games are going to be moved to the final window. And that's actually going to be like the consequence for these teams already, because imagine Korea will play 4 games in the next window. China will probably have to play 6 games in the next window. And they still have an Olympic qualifying tournament to play for as well in 2021 because of the Tokyo Olympics. So that's kind of like the natural consequence for these federations and these teams choosing to skip this window, they're going to have to prepare maybe a 24-man pool in the next window and have 2 sets of 12-man teams alternating, because they're going to have to play so many games. So for us, we're probably going to have to play 2 Korea games and 1 Indonesia game in the next window.
Siguradong gigil bumawi ang Thailand. They want to get back and at least pull the rug from under the Philippines. What should Gilas do actually to avoid the upset acts? And I'm going to put Gabe Norwood later on the spot and ask him if in the future he sees himself as a Gilas coach. Oh boy, that's something to look forward to when Sports Page returns. It's now time for our sidebar here on Sports Page. How young is the current Gilas Pilipinas roster? The oldest player, Ray Suerte, was born in 1994, while the youngest member, Dave Ildefonso, was born in 2000. Not to rub it in, 10 years na sa PBA si Ngayong noong 2000. The average age of the Gilas Pilipinas roster was 23 years old. 23, as we millennials would like to say, SMH. So to make us feel a little more old, here are 5 things that happened 23 years ago. The movie Titanic was released. It took home 11 Oscars, including Best Picture and Best Director. Elton John's Candle in the Wind was the biggest single in music and topped the Billboard charts. The first Harry Potter book, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, was published by J.K. Rowling. Version 4 of Internet Explorer was released. At that time, it was the only internet browser available. The next one is really history. Romel Aducol won the Sportsmanship Award in the 1997 FIBA Asia Cup. The Philippines finished 9th. Smiles all around. Nice to see you all smiling. Gabe, put you on the spot. Do you see yourself coaching in the future? I know you have many more years to play in the PBA, but would you be open to coaching Gilas?
I mean, I'd definitely be down to help the program in any way possible, whether that was coaching or scouting, finding talent around the world in any way. I've committed so much to try to get the program to where it is now. No point in stopping and trying to use my talents outside of playing to try to get the team as well prepared as possible.
Okay, thank you, Gabe. And so let's go to you. Do you think John Wichiko is going to shuffle his lineup? There are some injured players, I understand.
I wouldn't be surprised, Sir Sev. Calvin Oftana and I think JD Tungkab were the ones who sat out that first game. And in this current format of the qualifiers, the teams are actually allowed to tweak their rosters in between games. And I wouldn't be surprised if both those guys, JD and Calvin, who's the NCAA MVP, the reigning MVP in the NCAA, I'm not going to be surprised if they're plugged into that second game against Thailand. And I think those two guys have the talent and are hungry enough for sure to contribute in this game against Thailand. So I wouldn't be surprised if you have a little bit of a shuffle in the main roster and maybe even the starting 5 for the game against Thailand.
I'm going to coach. Thank you, Enzo. I'm going to ask Coach Yang before I pass it on to Dr. J. Does it help Coach Yang that they're all of the same age? They know each other. They played against each other. They played together. Kilalang-kilala nila yung laro. Sometimes, di ba yung player, alam ko yung laro niyan. Even with varied systems, alam ko yung laro niyan. Gaya ng trail pass kay Kobe, it was so obvious. And mukhang magkakakilala sila. Mukhang advantage yun, Coach Yang.
Oh, well, of course, familiarity is always an advantage. Whether you're familiar because you're playing with them or whether you're familiar because you're playing against them, it always has an advantage. Another advantage is playing styles and the system. Coach Tab Baldwin, Coach Jong Ichiko are using the same system as Ateneo's system is being implemented by Coach Tab. So at least they agreed within the coaching staff that this is the system that we'll use, and the players are able to embrace that system, able to play well with that system. So that familiarity, not just with the players but with the system and the coaches themselves, is of course a great advantage.
The UP players, having played against Ateneo, they seem to know the play. So
yes, that's also an advantage, because you're guarding somebody you're familiar with, and then when you're teammates with them, that at least where his sweet spot is, what his weaknesses are and his strengths are.
And I remember this during the time when Coach Chot was still the coach of the Gilas team. they do a lot of scouting. They send their assistant coaches abroad to watch the different games of the opponents that you're going to meet in the particular tournament, whether it be Iran or so on and so forth, wherever they play. And I think that's very important for a team when they go in, that they realize what the other team is going to do. And I think Gabe would be an excellent scout also. He can pass on to any one of those nationalities and they won't think that he's inside the country. No, Gabe, but I really believe you.
Blend right in. I'll blend right in.
Yeah, you blend right. And I think you have the knowledge. You know, you work under Coach Yang, and you also, I just think that he talks about the leadership, which I certainly believe. I think you've been the captain ball also. And I think the players respect you a lot. So you got a job here if you want to stay around here.
That's good to know.
Let's everybody forget Coach Yang, Dr. J, and Gabe were all together.
Yeah, we were together. We
won a championship together.
True.
Can I just ask Enzo at this time before I give it back to Dr. J? Should we be worried about any surprises from Thailand, or yun na yun? What Thailand will be, yun na yun nakita natin?
I think I don't want to sound too complacent, Sir Seven, but I think that's pretty much it already. Remember that Thailand brought only a 10-man squad to Bahrain, and every single one played in that game against us, and every single one played on Saturday night in their game against Indonesia as well. And medyo
which they
lost that game, yeah. And medyo nabugbog din sila doon against Lester Prosper and Brandon Jawato, those two new guys of Indonesia. So I think actually that Thailand's realistic goal right now would probably be just play as well as they can against us. And then their next target would be in the third window, upset Indonesia in the next window na. Because remember, the top two teams in our group will already make it to the FIBA Asia Cup. The third place team will make it to a qualifying tournament with all the other third place teams across the other 5 groups in the qualifiers.
Alam mo, Coach, nakikinig ako sa iyo no isang araw, Coach Yang, who was doing it with Com Noli, no? And what was very obvious was in the first quarter, we wanted to know what kind of a team they were. So you kept on mentioning that they were making shots from the outside. Actually, I think they made 4 or 5 3-point shots, 3 from the corner, 2 from the guy there at the 90-degree angle. Ang ginawa natin sa second quarter, prines natin, hindi na nila maibaba ang bola. You know, they could not bring the ball down when we went on a half-court press or a zone press or whatever. And we realized that they really didn't have a hard half-court game. So I don't think they had any chance of upsetting us, because Tab might do this from the very beginning. I just pressure them from the very start until the end of the ball game.
Well, I'm sure they already got a game plan against Thailand. The first time it worked. So the second time, I'm sure they're just going to get better at it. The press of the Gilas team is a really formidable press. If the Thai team is not able to handle it better from the backcourt, I think the results are going to be the same. Tinatanong ni Seb kanina kung eto na ba yun, ganyan na lang ba talaga? Tingin ko, yun na yun. No? I think that's the best that they can do. Although they preserve some of their key players. No, yung malaki nila si Jacquaran, I think last quarter they did not play him anymore. But Coach Jong Ichico and Coach Tab did the same thing. No, sila Dwight Ramos, sina Justin Baltasar, some of the other guys, they preserved them knowing that we had a good lead. You don't want any injuries. You want them fresh in this game. So all of that has been taken care of. So I'm not really too worried about our next game against Thailand.
Okay. We'll take a short second break, but when we return, it's something to discuss with all our experts here, and Dr. J as well. The question in the minds of a lot of people is, why don't we have that many good outside shooters? I know there are, but not in the same mold probably as an Alan Kaide. That is foremost in the minds of many fans. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of that question when we return for your final portion of Sports Page. That's what they said. And for that portion tonight, we asked, what are your thoughts on Gilas Pilipinas' win over Thailand last Friday? Rezel, this may be one win, but I am supportive of how the program goes. We must employ collegiate stars all throughout the tournament until the FIBA Asia Cup. Manrique says, huwag makampante kasi dati naman nating nilalampaso ng mga amateur natin yung Thailand at Indonesia. Tunay na sukatan talaga is yung South Korea o Japan. Nicholas _ who won? The journey continues. One small step for Gilas. Trust the process and let's see once the games are tougher. Hex Dago says, if that's what a top Baldwin system can do in just 2 weeks of preparation for these young guns, imagine what it can do in a much longer period of time. And that's what they said. Let's toss it over to Coach Yang. Yes, we need outside shooters, but do we have enough or do we not have them anymore in the mold of the trigger man?
You know, it's always difficult to have somebody shoot like Alan Kahidik. No, I mean, Alan's talent is generational. I think you're going to have one Alan Kahidik in a generation. Maybe the next generation there's going to be somebody else like Alan. But maybe 20-25 years before you can get somebody like him shooting again. But generally, I think on the average, our players are shooting the outside shot better than we were shooting it maybe 10 years ago. All teams are really putting a premium on their outside shot. So the training is going to go there. The investment in time and effort is going to go there. And it's already been going there. So if you look at averages, I think the 3-point shot is getting better overall. For most teams that I can see.
Dwight Ramos was perfect from the field in that game. Sid Ventura, our friend from ESPN 5, said he shouldn't play in the UAAP anymore. He should play straight into the PBA because he was just that good. Enzo, what do you think?
Oh, wow. He was, as good as advertised. I don't think a lot of people were surprised, especially people who've seen him play, when he was in Team B or in other leagues. But for the people who saw him for the first time against Thailand, they were like, oh, we knew he was good, but not this good. 7 out of 7 from the field, 20 points, 7 rebounds as well. And even the intangibles, the hustle, actions, he was able to do those things as well. So bright future for Dwight Ramos. And this is a guy who, even as far back as 2016, he was supposed to play for the Philippines already, for Batang Gilas. But because of certain things, that fell through. And, people who've known him for that long are just so happy to see him finally, playing for the country. He played in the first window and playing again in this window against Thailand.
Dr. J?
I was very impressed with this player when the first time I saw him because he can play 1, 2, 3. And
Yes.
it'd be surprising. And he's 6'4", no? And he's a very, very good passer. I thought he had a very economical moves, no wasted moves. He really knows how to pass. You have to be a good teammate to understand his kind of game. Of course, shooting that well is not going to be everyday thing. Even he said that. But the boy really has a good future. So I think his father, of course, is a Filipino. Tapos yung mother's side niya, parents, I think, are Russians who became Americans. Diba? I'd like to thank Coach Cheng because he certainly has helped us understand the game a little bit more. Ikaw, Coach Cheng, ano pa masasabi mo sa composition natin?
Well, I've said this before, no? If we're really looking towards the 2023 World Cup, that means that's going to be competition against the highest level, of players from all over the world. And with this team, I think there's going to be 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 guys who might be that good when 2023 comes. But I still feel that we're still going to need our pro players if we really want to assemble the best team. Of course, this program is going towards using non-PBA players all the way to 2023. But I'm not really sure if that's the best way to assemble the best talent. This team is going to still get better. I have no doubt about that. These players are still going to get better. The best players that go to the best competitions are still all pro players. No, it's very rare that they have an amateur player. Maybe they'll put in 1 or 2 who are their project players in their national team. But if it's really high-level competition, they call the best pro players from their best pro clubs. They come together and they play for their national team. I don't know of any program anywhere in the world that sends non-professionals to form the national team and be successful. But I think there's nothing wrong with trying with this program. Nothing wrong with that. But I don't know of any program that's been successful doing that.
Going last question to Gabe. Without Andre, we wouldn't have gotten to where we've gotten, right? We'll never have those silver medal placings. So that's again what Coach was saying. We still do need one good naturalized player. That's a big guy that can help us in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, and we can't forget Marcus and Andre did a great job of really embracing, their opportunity to play for the country and really leaving it all out there on the court when they're given the opportunity. And, like we said, it comes down to the next tier, right? The next tier of teams regionally and internationally across the globe that we're going to have to go up and compete against. And, 3 years from now, hopefully, maybe all these guys won't be non-pros at that time. Just a lot can change over that time in terms of, if they're available to play in the PBA and kind of consistently play against top competition at the pro level. But I think chemistry goes a long way. So it's a toss-up. You sacrifice the time committed in the chemistry with the pro level of a player that can really come in and help right away with no questions asked. And, luckily I don't have to make the decision, but at the end of the day, you just pray that the group that's out there is going to play the best of their ability.
Dr. J, we've gotten great insights from our guests here today, from Gabe Norwood, from Enzo Floa, and Coach Yeng Giao, who know this international game so well. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for dropping by again here on Sports Page. And Dr. J, thank you as well.
Thank you, guys.
Allow me to go to our last look. Watching the current batch of Gilas Pilipinas last Friday made me realize two things. Players today are getting more skilled, and boy, I'm really old. But what doesn't get old? Representing the Philippines. Just watching the young guys play, you can feel they're really proud of donning the national colors, of taking on the pressure, of representing the millions of Filipinos back home. The stories must be true. May magic ang pagsuot ng Gilas Pilipinas jersey. And it doesn't matter if the players are young, they instantly feel a deep sense of civic duty. And I can't help but draw parallelisms to what's happening in our country these days, because it is the youth who are being more outspoken and more active in seeking for change and aiming for a better future. Let's all keep our hopes young. In behalf of all of us here, thank you for joining us for this very special edition of your Sports Page.